different worlds. Where other technicians saw tedious, thankless labor, Caden saw a kind of quiet meditation. Every broken object had a story, and every repair was a way of listening to it. That morning, a small robot figurine landed on his workbench. It stood barely 20 centimeters tall, but the moment his scanner passed over it, something flagged in his readout. The metal wasn't standard alloy. It was a rare composite mined only within the territory of the Vethrani Queendom, a nation that ruled 37 star systems and held one of the most delicate diplomatic alliances in the galaxy's history. Caden didn't know who had sent it in. The work order gave no name, only a warning. This repair mattered more than it looked. He got to work anyway. The figurine's main motor had locked up entirely. Several of its sensors had failed from water damage. And worst of all, the small projector built into its right arm, clearly the feature its owner loved most, based on how worn that section was, had suffered a complete internal failure. He started with the motor, because C's parts required patience, not brilliance. Using precision tools built for the smallest imaginable work, he worked the joint free, testing the metal's heat tolerance until he understood exactly how it behaved. Within 20 minutes, it moved smoothly again. The sensor damage took longer. 2 of the components he could fabricate from what he already had in his workshop. The third he adapted from a spare part he'd been saving for exactly this kind of situation. One by one, he tested each sensor until every reading came back clean. But the shield projector, that was the real challenge. Deep inside, a tiny crystal responsible for shaping the energy field had shifted out of alignment. It was such a small defect that it had taken very specific conditions to trigger the failure, but eventually, it would have broken regardless. There were no manufacturer specifications anywhere in his database. So Caden did what he always did when documentation failed him. He studied the surrounding components, understood the logic of their design, and built his own solution around it. When he finally powered on the toy for a final test, a small, shimmering energy field bloomed to life around its little forearm, perfectly formed, stable, exactly as it should be. It was the kind of victory that came only from real problem-solving, and Caden allowed himself a rare moment of quiet satisfaction. He logged his repair process in detail, packaged the toy carefully, and moved on to the next item in his queue without a second thought. 3 hours later, the pickup arrived. And it was not what he expected. 12 armed guards entered first, wearing insignia Caden didn't recognize. Behind them, station sensors picked up a ship in the nearby corridor, the unmistakable energy signature of a sovereign-class diplomatic vessel. Then a child walked into the room. She looked no older than 8 in human terms, olive-toned skin, dark braided hair, pointed ears, and a way of carrying herself that spoke of a lifetime of formal training, the kind children only receive when they're born into power. She looked at the toy sitting on the counter, then at Caden, then back at the toy. When she picked it up and the shield flickered to life around its arm, her face broke into an expression of pure, unguarded joy, the look of someone who feared something precious was gone forever, only to have it returned whole. Then the woman behind her stepped through the doorway. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a crown that Caden's cultural database took nearly 4 seconds to identify. Queen Silvara Vethrani, ruler of 37 star systems, and, according to several strategic assessments Caden had read, considered by many analysts to be the single most formidable political mind currently active in known space. She watched her daughter's expression for a moment. Then she turned her full attention to Caden, the same kind of focus he suspected she reserved for treaty negotiations and military assessments. The shield component, she said. Our own technical division examined this 3 months ago. They concluded the internal failure was unfixable without the manufacturer's original specifications. I studied the surrounding parts, Caden replied simply. Once I found the misalignment, the fix followed logically. You reconstructed manufacturing specifications from adjacent components, she said slowly, as if testing the sentence for truth. It seemed like the most likely path to success, Caden said. The Queen said nothing for a moment. Beside her, the girl was already showing off the shield to one of the guards with obvious delight. You're listed on the work order, the Queen said finally, as a general repair technician. That's correct. You repaired an object of enormous personal value to my family, using methods that surpassed what our most specialized engineers believed possible. And you filed it as routine work. It's documented in the log, Caden said. If the method is useful to someone else later, they're welcome to it. Something shifted in the Queen's expression, not quite warmth, but something close to genuine reconsideration. "I'd like to compensate you properly," she said, "though I suspect your station's standard rate card has no line item for this." "Standard rate plus materials is fine," Caden said. "The fabricated parts are itemized separately." The Queen studied him for a long moment, the way someone studies a rare thing they didn't expect to find. "I'll arrange payment accordingly," she said. Then, after a pause, "You'll also find an additional consideration attached. It is not negotiable." "I'll note it in the log," Caden said. The next morning, when he reviewed the transaction, he discovered exactly what that additional consideration was: a formal appointment as technical consultant to the Vethrani Queendom's entire artifact restoration division, a credential so significant that his station administrator, reading the paperwork, quietly admitted he was reconsidering his own career choices. Caden noted the appointment in his records, then went back to his queue. It was a long one that day. Years later, the Vethrani Restoration Division would quietly rewrite its entire repair methodology based on techniques first recorded in an ordinary maintenance log from Kurth Station. Caden never found out how far his work traveled. He was usually too busy fixing the next thing on his bench to notice.